Largely due to the internet, we are in a day and age of reading of all varieties being more accessible to everyone than ever before. But that still doesn't mean it's completely
free of charge.
In fact, there are several different barriers that can prevent you still from being able to afford, get your hands on, or find your next favorite read. On top of that, and I'm saying this as someone who has a definitive edition of one of their books up on Kickstarter right now, there seems to be this play towards FOMO sometimes to try and really crank up the pressure for people to get more expensive deluxe versions of books. And I want to say this with my chest fully on the record, getting a deluxe or definitive edition of a book, special, whatever it's labeled as, gives you no actual advantage or better reading experience as a fan. Sure, there can be some pretty art, most of which you'll be able to find online after the special edition comes out, and that kind of collecting should really be seen more as like a paralleling hobby to being a fan of reading yourself. Just because someone has a bunch of special editions does not mean they are a better reader or better fan than you. The best way to read a book is whatever's most accessible to you.
I'm also saying that as someone who loves special editions, thinks they can be such a great piece of art to collect. It's just a parallel hobby to being a book fan, in my opinion, whereas very often they're presented as like one and the same. Anyway, back to my system for getting books more affordably.
That's all well and dandy, sounds nice, but okay, what are the most accessible ways to pick up books right now? In this video, I'm gonna go over 3 different foolproof methods to be able to find, get your hands on your next read at the most affordable cost possible. The first of which I'm gonna do a bit of an experiment with. That is, going to your local library and getting a library card. For some reason in the day and age of streaming where you're already not owning a lot of your media, it seems there's still a hesitance some people have. They're just signing up at their local library, supporting it, and being an active member in their community. So I, having moved to Boston the last year, haven't taken the time to walk down to my local library and sign up for a library card. And I'm gonna show you just how quick and easy that can be with no editing tricks, no gimmicks. I'm gonna start a timer on my phone, walk from here to there, sign up, come back, resume recording, and show you just how long that took. No joke, let's go do this right now. I wanna show you just how dope libraries can be. All right, we're about to walk out the door. Mako really wants to join us. He will not be though, because there's dogs out there. And now I'm going to start the timer. 3, 2, 1, put it in my pocket, and we'll see what the final countdown is. I know you wanna come, but you cannot.
Hold on, I just want to... Mako, tell them.
So I'm well aware that not everyone has a library within walking distance to them. That's why we're still going to be getting into options 2 and 3 here, as well as, you know, sometimes you want to own stuff, and that's fine. So those are going to be the other options. That being said, though, I really think this is something people should more seriously consider because libraries are also growing, evolving, and changing. Kayla just almost hit a sign. And they're managing to supply more things for their communities. I've seen libraries offering like rare cooking utensils. Rare cooking utensils where it's like, oh, I don't have a wok, but I need one for a recipe tonight. I can check it out at a library. Just see what yours has to offer. They can be absolutely stupendous places to go. And we officially have it. 18 minutes, almost exactly. Now I have access to libraries all over Boston. My reading power's over 9,000! It's a very easy, free process. Though to be completely fair, Kayla and I live very close to a library. But there might be one closer to you than you may expect, so just open up whatever GPS app you have, put in library, and there could be an undiscovered local little one that's been under your radar this whole time.
Where are you hiding, you
And one final note, I know some people, they want to own their books. There's constantly sales of used books going on at libraries. They had a whole shelf of just $1 books they were willing to sell there. Additional bonus of just finding out where that might be. All right, so we got the easy, free as long as you return it on time option out of the way. And from here, I'm going to get more into the you own it now territory. Though I still recommend for one of these options getting a library card because it might benefit you. So easiest access to cheap used books is going to be ordering from used online stores, which there are actually a small plethora of. Note, there is still additional costs here. Shipping, for one, is something that is always going to add a buck or two for whatever used book is being sent to you. That being said, it's still going to end up being cheaper than going to Amazon. For example, if you go to Thrift Books, I managed to find even with shipping, A Cost of American Gods is cheaper than the Amazon option. Granted, it's used, but you're also not supporting Amazon. That's just one example though. I've also had a lot of people recommend Book Depository to me. Full disclosure, not my favorite site. For no personal reason, it's just I've never been able to find them having in stock what I'm looking for, while Thrift Books almost always does. But especially if you're living in a place where shipping is going to be a bit expensive. I'm fortunate enough to be in Boston where everything is just like a buck or two, but if you're out middle of nowhere or another country, there's going to be used bookstores still in existence around you. Yes, believe it or not, my God, many of these brick and mortar stores have survived the pandemic, Amazon, and the advent of e-readers and are still successfully slinging books. Second and Charles and Half Price Books are two examples here in the United States. I recommend you look up locations near you where you're able to get even hardbacks and manga for an incredibly reasonable price, and many of the books are in near perfect condition. And more importantly, if you're struggling financially and want to get new books and don't really care about collecting and have a bunch of books you're done with, you can go trade them in and help them pay for your next book. It's a really good way to keep your TBR cycling and isn't going to be as restricted as what's checked out at your local library. This one's really big and I recommend it a lot. Find a even not chain, locally owned used bookstore by you and complement your library card with it. That way you kind of never are really waiting, or while you are waiting, you have cheap options next to you to pull from. It feels very weird after just getting a library card going straight to a used bookstore to prove that used bookstores are viable. But we're doing it, let's go. It had to be raining today. It had to be raining. Don't be that guy. All right, so I just spent $10 at the used bookstore, and I managed to get both Carrie, which I've read, but I never have a physical copy of, and a China Melville book that has also been on my TBR. $10 total for both. Absolute steal. The only downside is it was raining today and I'm just in a t-shirt, so gross. And I just want to point out while I'm getting home after doing this little proof of concept experiment that in terms of bang for your buck value, this is several days worth of entertainment for $10. That's awesome! Now, I've seen some people lump bookshop.org in with like thrift books and then complain about bookshops' prices. Bookshop.org not selling you used books. They are a wonderful source if you need to get a new one. But what their angle is and why I use affiliate links whenever I can with them is yes, you get it new, but they're also splitting profits with local bookstores and helping support our bookstore community as a whole. They're completely valid and I really like supporting them, but just be aware their angle is not cheap. It's just ethical or community supporting. And now finally, here is in the long run, the big picture, the cheapest option that does require some cash up front. And that's an e-reader. Undeniably, dealing with e-formats as time goes on gets cheaper than continually buying new books. Partially because you can find free ebooks for an unbelievable number of books online. Through things like Project Gutenberg or just authors putting up ebooks for free or things being out of copyright date. If you're willing to not go through the store within the ebooks ecosystem and instead learn how to sideload, it's kind of free to infinitely read with a somewhat limited selection, but not really, because, you know, most of literature is available to you, to just start pounding through books on an e-reader. Now, the upfront cost of an e-reader is scary, but can be hugely mitigated by going used. E-readers are now reaching a point on the market where they're kind of like cell phones. There are just so many of older models floating around that are perfectly functional, and people with more money just wanted to get the latest version. Kobo, who is a friend of the channel and recently helped us with a charity project, full disclosure, it's why I'm picking to use them, has used e-readers on their website for a pretty substantial discount. But even better, pretty much the only use for Facebook, in my opinion, these days is Facebook Marketplace. And jumping on over to there, you can find a avalanche of even more so reduced in price e-readers for you to pick on up and have the convenience of being able to read anywhere with thousands of books stored in one tiny little display. I will say personally, I avoid Facebook Marketplace at all costs just due to the incredibly weird stuff that has happened to me when going that route, and there's other better marketplaces for you to go to. I just use that as an example of a place we all know and are familiar with that will, even if you're in a small town, have someone in a reasonable driving range of you, I assume, selling an e-reader. And if you happen to go with Kobo, the one that I recommended, they have a library tie-in that is massively useful to kind of taking everything we've talked about here today and just building out a system yourself to just kind of have any book you want, with some weights, sometimes not, available to you in both digital and physical format through your local library. It kind of becomes a bit of a power force system. Now, the last thing I'm going to mention here is something I'm not as familiar with. I actually just signed up for it, called BookBub, and that's why it's kind of put at the end here. I can't throw my full weight of recommendation behind it, but I've seen a lot of people talk positively online about it and strongly recommend the advantage of signing up for what is essentially a mailing list for whatever you're waiting for to see when a big sale happens. It's kind of like an Amazon price tracker, but specifically for your TBR. One benefit of this I'm already experiencing in my limited exposure and enjoying is how you can tell BookBub, these are the formats I'm looking for, and these are the books I want. And through that, I found out that Babel by R.F. Kuang is available for $2 right now on Kindle. Nice. And while American Gods, the book we were using for examples here today, wasn't on sale, I was able to add it to a wish list, so I'll be notified. And in the meantime, I'm going to continue reading The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin, which I was able to get through all these processes for about $1. So cool. And then there is one final way I want to make more people aware of that does work. It just requires a little bit more of upfront effort, especially if you're into reading indie books. There are thousands, tens of thousands of authors who, if you send them an email, will give you a free version of their book in return for just a simple Goodreads review. If you don't mind putting up that little bit of extra effort, I personally find writing reviews really fun. Find an author of a book you're interested in on Twitter, see an email they'll likely have publicly available, and just ask if you can get an ebook from them in exchange for a review. If they don't have a publisher, if they're not someone who's already blown up, they will be eager, excited to get you an ebook of their work in exchange for a review. Back when I was getting started on BookTube, this happened all the time with me, and it's kind of how I was able to do it while traveling and save money. And the best part is, this is something the community as a whole, if you go into like book saving spaces, is constantly talking about. Please check the comments on this video for probably a very viable way to get books, ebooks, or paperback, even hardback, really cheap prices that I may have just not been aware of. They will be talking about it. Hello, people who have already left comments. I appreciate you. Thank you. That is also a way to save money. I encourage you to leave that comment. But that was just my really quick guide on the best ways to save money while trying to still be a voracious reader and make as few sacrifices as possible. There is tons of ways to get paperbacks used for just a couple of bucks at local stores and online. If you're willing to put up 20, 40, 60 bucks maybe for a used e-reader, a whole bunch of books become available to you for completely free, and some more with a bit effort, as well as just a ton of them being available pretty cheaply for just a couple of bucks being ebook format. And never underestimate the importance of a library that can act as a backup to support all the methods you go and get books with. So like and subscribe if you have not already. Check out the Patreon if you want to support what I do here and get some bonus content from Kayla and I, which she has something devious planned for me with fan fiction. It's a secret project for her. I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but I'm excited for it. And have a good one, y'all. Love you, bye!